The Head Coach Isaac Collins Show. Here's Dan Flickinger and Seton Hill Head Coach Isaac Collins.
And welcome back to Griffins Game Day. As we count you down to kickoff, we are preparing for week number 1 for Seton Hill football as the Griffins take on the Virginia Union Panthers. And as we always do, we talk with Seton Hill University football coach Isaac Collins, typically almost 100% of the time on video. But this week, for the opening week, we are on audio talking with Coach Collins about the Seton Hill Griffins. Coach, first of all, week number 1, what's the excitement level like for you opening year 6 now at Seton Hill?
Super excited. Our kids have done an outstanding job this off season. Really kind of raising the bar in terms of what we need to do to get to where we need to be as a program, and been kind of neat to see some guys really develop into great leaders this off season, and really kind of taking some ownership of the program and really working to help us kind of get our feet back underneath us. So excited for them. Certainly it's a long off season. Anytime you come off of a tough season, it's really hard. On the players, hard on the coaches. So I know after banging each other around for the last 3 weeks, they're looking forward to finally getting to hit someone else.
And year 6 for you, Coach, pretty hard to believe, isn't it?
It's amazing how fast this thing has gone, man. It really is.
Tell us how camp went overall, and kind of what the schedule was like, the scrimmages and that kind of those kind of things. And was there anything altered this year in camp schedule-wise?
Well, it was, obviously it was year 2 with not having doubles, so we got, a little bit more meeting time. We got some good walkthrough time with the guys. We were able to, because of the numbers in the program, having good numbers, we've been able to, do a little bit more live stuff, practice, sprinkling that in. So when we got to scrimmages, it wasn't the first time the guys were tackling and cutting each other. So, so that was a major change, and we kind of started it really back in the spring, utilizing the percentage each practice that you can have where you can do a little bit of live. We kind of made sure that we got that stuff in, especially with some of the younger players that are unproven. We wanted to kind of put them in game-like situations as much as we could. So that was probably the biggest change, and just as I say, knock on wood, we really went through camp and didn't have any major injuries, and I think that was in part to just the work that our players did in the off season, and then just overall with the coaches, the way they're teaching the different techniques to make sure that we're keeping the players safe. So,
well, that's a great thing, and I'm sure that helps breed better competition and those type of things. You're not worrying about injuries as much. We look back at last year, Coach. There's no hiding from the 0-11 season after a season in which you went 5-6 2 years ago, and then the 0-11 season last year. And I know I've asked you this before, and I know you're ready to, this is in the rearview mirror for you for sure. But when you had a chance to reflect on last season, what do you think the main contributors were to your record last year?
I think the biggest thing was kind of a combination of youth, a combination of staff changes. We had, as shared with you a few times in different interviews, we had pretty much the entire defensive staff leave over the summer, and then we hired basically new staff. Heck, one guy didn't make it in until 2 weeks into training camp, and I don't think we, as a defensive staff, we ever were able to gel. We obviously losing Ardell Brown for the season. We lost some firepower on offense that kind of set us back, that we were hoping would maybe be able to kind of close the gap for some of the deficiencies defensively. So I think when you combine that with some young kids that are kind of learning how to play the game, learning how to practice, trying to develop on-the-job training, as they say, with coaches that were really kind of new to Seton Hill and were kind of only a page or two ahead of the players in the playbook. It really kind of was a recipe for disaster. That is probably the best way that I can describe that. So certainly from an internal standpoint, I think our kids are bouncing back. I don't think we took any steps back off the field. I really think as a whole, our kids, did a tremendous job, on campus, tremendous job in the classroom. So for us, it was really just disappointing that we couldn't get the pieces together. And I think not to take away from, the folks that we played. We played a tough schedule against some really, really good opponents, and we're in a good conference. So you can't have those types of setbacks. So you tie that in with graduating 21 seniors from that, 5 and 6 season, and a lot of those guys were on defense. It really puts you in the hole a little bit. So, we, kind of went back to work this off season. I think we recruited some good guys. I think we got some, really good guys in the program, and now it's just a matter of kind of finding that consistency that we need to be able to be a little bit more than just competitive in this league.
Well, let's look forward to this season. I know you guys are ready to do that, and you have already. You have a new quarterback, Christian Strong, graduated. How did that competition go in camp, and what allowed Ryan Barabee to emerge as the starter for Week 1?
Well, I think Ryan's got some tremendous leadership skills. He showed that throughout the spring. Our redshirt freshman Chris Jones really kind of battled with him because he had a lot of moxie. I think at the end of the day, it kind of came down to just one guy having a little bit more experience and kind of got hot at the right time. Because it really was up until scrimmage number 2. They were probably neck and neck. And I think scrimmage number 2. Ryan came out and really kind of started to pull away. But we're definitely excited about both of them. I think that competition throughout the year should help us. But a slightly different type of quarterback, and it'll be interesting to see him as he as he goes to battle this weekend for the very first time. So really kind of looking forward to see how he develops over the season. And I would not, rule out the redshirt freshman either, because, like I said, he's done some really, really good things as well.
You have some of the best wideouts in the conference. You mentioned Ardell Brown returning, missing all of last year with injuries. I can't wait to see AB out there. 2 years ago, a first-team all-conference performer. How was his camp? And just talk about what he adds to the offense and the different dimension that he adds when he's out there.
Well, I think, the first thing he brings to the table that some people kind of look past because he's such a tremendous athlete, that, it's just his leadership on the field. He is a guy that goes to work. He's a guy that catches a slant in a tag period, gets tagged off, and he's still running 60 yards, really kind of setting the example of what it should look like for a lot of the young receivers that we have in the program now, and kind of raising the bar on that end, so I think that's the first thing. And then the second thing is obviously he's dynamic and he causes matchup problems. So we're hoping getting him back will loosen the box a little bit so that we can run the football as well as, hopefully open some things up for some of our other receivers that we think are pretty talented as well.
Coach, looking at the running back position, how do you see your running back stacking up coming into the season, and how did they perform at camp?
Really excited about them. Obviously, a year ago, splitting some time with Jarvis, they didn't get as many touches as they probably would have liked, but they had a really, really good spring, really good off season. Great preseason training camp, and each of them brings something a little bit different to the table. Obviously, Sin Q gives you kind of that home run hitter mentality. Can line up in the slot, create matchup problems. Great in our screen game. You got Logan Weiland, who's just kind of the bull in the China store. He runs extremely hard, gives us kind of that combo back that can give you that power back, similar to what we had a few years ago with Khalil Howard. And then he also has the ability to kind of line up and play some fullback for us and create some matchups that way. And then Mike Valentino is having really, really good camp as well. And we got obviously transfer Eric Finney that's doing a really, really good job. So from our perspective, we feel like we got some depth there, but unfortunately, there's only one football. So Coach Eager's going to have some sleepless nights trying to figure out how we get those guys the ball because we think they're all pretty good.
Yeah, I guess a good problem to have for Coach Eager for sure. And then, of course, the guys up front. Did you like what you saw from the offensive line during training camp?
Yes, they're developing, coming along. We got some new faces in there. A couple guys got a little nicked up, nothing major. Your typical sore hands and sore shoulders, sore feet in some cases. But we got to play a couple different combinations through the course of those 3 scrimmages, which was pretty neat. We held some guys out in the last one just to see how some of the new guys would do. So we definitely think we got some size there, and those guys are slowly playing themselves into shape. So we feel pretty good, that they're going to be able to kind of be a pretty good anchor for us to be able both in the run game as well as obviously our pass game.
One more thing about the offense, Coach. With a new quarterback, do you have to change things offensively? I mean, obviously Christian knew the offense like the back of his hand. He was with you guys for 5 years. With a new quarterback like Ryan, and I know it's not his first year here, but did you have to change anything coming into this season?
I don't think we had to necessarily change some things. I think, kind of our approach was a little bit different. We had to, in the spring, try to find out, what both him and Chris liked. And then as preseason camp went on, Coach Eager did a pretty good job of kind of putting together a play menu that, really kind of helped him to be able to get the ball out of his hands quicker in the pass game, giving him, formationally some things that forced people's hand a little bit so that he could kind of see what they were doing until he can just kind of get that game experience that he needs. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a little bit more of kind of tailoring it to his strengths and making sure he's comfortable, more so than kind of, hey, we can't run these plays or you can't run these concepts, because as you know, with our system, it's really about him being a point guard and distributing the ball, more so than kind of putting a lot of pressure that he's got to check into the right play. So Coach Eager handles a good decent amount of that. Kind of puts it on his shoulders to be right more than wrong, and it kind of is going to make it a little bit easier for Ryan to kind of slide in there, and pick up hopefully where Christian left off.
Going on the defensive side of the ball, I know that you look at the team you had 2 years ago, and as you mentioned, you had a lot of veteran starters on that side. They all graduated, and last year it kind of showed up in the results. Do you see improvement on that side of the ball after the unit struggled last year?
Oh, really did. As I had shared in a couple interviews with you, it started with us as a staff. Once we got the new staff hired and in place, I kind of just took some dynamite to the terminology, to what was going on, because we had 3 different defensive coordinators that came in. They all kind of brought different ideas. So we kind of blew all of that up, simplified some things, cleaned some things up. Really think it's kind of helped our kids. I think they've enjoyed what we're doing, starting back in the spring and then going through training camp. I think a lot of even the younger players really kind of had an appreciation for the way we're calling things and the way we're packaging things. So definitely saw some great improvement. The guys I think really are excited to get back on the field and compete. I think they know we're still young in some areas and we're still going to make some youthful mistakes. But the biggest thing that I told them is that we got to kind of use effort to kind of play our way out of some of those mistakes. So that's been what we've been preaching to them since the spring. We've conditioned a little bit differently defensively to try to prepare ourselves for the types of offenses that we see in this conference. So really excited to kind of see this defense grow and these kids grow over the course of the year. But definitely have saw major improvements and steps forward as a unit.
And on the defense, Coach, who specifically has you excited, or what position? I'm assuming you're excited about your guys up front, Tyler Affa, Keyshawn Pettit-Friere come back, and definitely some others. Is that where your strength lies?
It really does. It's definitely going to be, as those guys go, we'll go. They're going to have to, especially early on, find ways to generate pressure with a 4- and 3-man rush, just because we're going to be young on the back end. So we're going to have to try to do some different things to kind of protect those kids until they can get their feet underneath them. But Noah Davis has had a really good, camp. He's done a good job kind of, coming into his own, and we're excited to kind of see him continue to develop. While he's probably the most experienced guy with Fardan, being out, that we have. So certainly from that standpoint, we're kind of excited, to see how he develops. And then on the other side, we got a pretty good competition with a couple new faces. We got a redshirt freshman, got a true freshman that's kind of battling for that other corner spot. Both have had good camps. So we're going to kind of, flip a coin and let those guys compete until someone rises to the top and take the position over. Getting Malik Scott back, we slid him to safety after playing some nickel and corner for us a year ago. So he's got obviously 4.5 years worth of experience inside of our program. So certainly excited about, him back there. And then we moved Tyrell Best-Savage, who was injured last year, had kind of a knee issue most of the year. And we were able to kind of get him back on the mend, and we moved him into safety. So I think, the core on the back end, while it's going to be useful, I'm excited to kind of see them develop, because I think as they get more and more experience, we should be in really good shape. And, the linebacking core is starting to kind of form itself. Cole Shooker has been in the program now for, being a redshirt junior. So certainly excited to see the things he's done. He's put weight on. He's gotten strong. He's gotten faster. Troy Balega, has had a really good spring, really good training camp. Just kind of the steady assassin, as we like to call him, doing some really, really good things. Kind of battling at that Mike linebacker position. And Jaden Emerson Gaines, again, we redshirted him a year ago, and now he's coming into his own as a redshirt sophomore. You can kind of see his body starting to change, as well as having a couple true freshmen that are really doing some neat things. Jake Hoyle coming over from Greensburg Salem has had a pretty good camp. We got Jalen McDuffie, who's a true freshman, actually going to start for us in this opener against Virginia Union. So I think while we're youthful in some areas, I really like the way that these guys are playing. And the biggest thing for us is finding a way to stay healthy, because I certainly feel like our first level and second level are pretty solid guys. We just don't have the depth right now to dip beyond that.
Before we talk about Virginia Union, I have to ask you this question, too. How was your kicking competition at camp? You have to replace Santiago Hanau, Santi as everyone called him. Who can we expect to be kicking field goals and extra points after all the touchdowns this year?
Yeah, well, I tell you what, we're excited about that. That's an ongoing battle with JP Watt, and Hunter's doing a really, really good job as well. We had kind of a kicking competition after scrimmage number 3. JP kind of edged that thing out, but it's a case where we're just going to probably go right up to game time before we finalize that, because both guys have done a really, really good job of splitting the uprights throughout training camp. So it's been neat. Having those types of numbers. Just speaking about specialists in general, we got a brand new long snapper. Matt Bonish has been amazing all camp. So we're certainly excited about him and what we think he's going to bring to the table. And then we got Matt Stewart returning at punter that gives us some experience there as well. So it'll be interesting to see how those guys perform. You never know what true freshmen are going to do until the lights turn on. So from our perspective, we're just kind of excited that we got a couple guys to battle, and we don't find ourselves in a position a year ago like we did with Santi, where he got kind of injured and people didn't know, and they're trying to figure out why they keep kicking the ball short. Santi couldn't kick during the week because he had an injury, so we had to kind of utilize him as best we could. So now this gives us some depth, at that position, and it gives great competition week to week to kind of challenge those guys to be at their best. During
that kicking competition, did you squirt water down the backs of the kickers as they were teeing it up like you used to do to Santi?
Well, we did that to Santi. He was a little bit more experienced, so the guys definitely wanted to get the freshmen, and I basically kind of told them that let's let them have this moment, where they're not too distracted. But they did get around and they hooted and hollered a little bit, so we didn't squirt them with the cold water this time. Maybe when they're sophomores, we'll bring that out.
More with Coach Collins coming up in a moment as we turn our attention to Virginia Union. You are listening to the Coach Collins Show as we get you ready for Seton Hill and Virginia Union. More with Coach C after this message.
Dino's Sports Lounge presents Mouth-Watering Wings, voted the best in the state of Pennsylvania. 20 ice-cold beers on tap, giant man-sized sandwiches, and all sports known to mankind on multiple plasma and big-screen TVs everywhere you look. It doesn't take a genius to figure out Dino's is the place for the real sports enthusiast. Dino's Sports Lounge. 2 locations, Route 30 Latrobe and Greensburg.
Dino's reminds you to drink responsibly. Have fun. Stay safe.
I've been here at Seton Hill University since the program started.
He plays a big part of this team and this coaching staff.
I woke up in the ER and it just hit me there. I just had a heart attack. Dr. Suzuki was absolutely amazing. This is the guy that I want in my corner right now.
The more amazing thing was how well his group of wrestlers teamed up to help him out. And it's very similar to the teamwork that we have in cardiac surgery. I'm glad to just be part of the story.
The roar of the crowd, the crack of the bat, the thousands of tackles, ground balls, and patterns run that earn the victory. AstroTurf helps make all these experiences become a reality. Since 1964, AstroTurf has been focusing on player safety, product durability, and game day performance. Visit one of their 280 fields in the tri-state area, and you'll experience their cutting-edge technology. To see what AstroTurf can do for you, visit astroturf.com.
This is defensive end Keith Smith, and the Griffins play here, the Westmoreland Sports Network.
Welcome back to Griffin's Game Day and the Coach Collins Show here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Coach, turning our attention now to Virginia Union, the first time ever Seton Hill will play the Panthers. First of all, how did this relationship come together with the two schools?
Well, it came together. Chris Schneider happened to be friends with their athletic director. We were obviously, when things fell through with Bowie and, Bowie had an opportunity to play a money game, which, was something that certainly most schools don't want to walk away from. Mm-hmm. They ended up kind of saying, because we originally talked about trying to do something long-term, but they just had a great opportunity, so we weren't able to get that pulled off. So we just kind of got to searching, and, we had a few things pop up on the radar, but from a traveling standpoint, wasn't a good fit. And Chris Schneider just happened to be, pretty good friends with their athletic director, and they got on the phone and kind of talked, and we got something set up to be able to do a home and home. So we're going to go to them this year, then they're going to come to us next year. So at least takes care of that opener for the next 2 years.
Well, Chris is a Virginia guy, so I'm sure he's excited about this.
Yeah, he is. He really is.
Certainly a long trip for you, 5 hours. Being it's your first game of the year, is that something the young guys have to adjust to quickly? I'm sure that's something that you guys have addressed with the younger guys on a long trip like this. And then, of course, you have E. Stroud next week, too.
Yeah, no, we talked to them about, the fastest way to kind of grow up is to get out of your comfort level. So certainly, playing against two really good opponents in our opener, before we get back home, I think will be good for us. I think having those early road trips hopefully will prepare us for later in the season when we got to travel, even though it won't be as far. Our guys will be used to kind of getting on a bus, traveling somewhere, and hopefully handling their business, and going out and performing very well. So certainly it's going to be a challenge. We've had those talks. The thing that's been pretty neat is that our leadership on the team. Those guys have kind of really took over that role as well, and it was neat to see the text messages that were flying around. Don't forget your toothbrush. Make sure you pack
all the little
extra socks. Yeah. So that was coming from our players. So it was pretty neat to see our captains knowing that we got a bunch of young guys kind of stepping up and saying, hey, I know this is going to be your first time taking a trip. It's not like high school where you get on the bus and maybe you go a couple hours. You're going to go overnight. So that's been really kind of helpful for us as a coaching staff, that we kind of focus on the preparation side, and our veteran players are really kind of setting the tone in terms of helping the younger players know what to expect, and giving the speech of do not forget your helmet.
Yeah, especially that. That's very important. Virginia Union has a new coach, Alvin Parker. When you face a new coach that is in his first game with that team, I mean, do you try to find film of the last team he was with and then watch that? I mean, how are you kind of preparing for Virginia Union and his spin on how he likes to do things and formations and all those types of things?
Yeah, you definitely try to pull stuff, that you can find off the internet. One of the things that makes it hard is that you can't really do a film exchange, because it's a case where, we're doing what we're doing. We're year 6 in, so if anything they would give us wouldn't be relevant, because they could send us Virginia Union film. But, with technology and guys putting highlight films up, you can kind of get, some glimpses of what to expect. And, obviously, just reaching in the coaching carousel of guys that have coached in that league or coached against them, kind of getting a little bit of an idea, talking with the Bowie State coach who's, pretty good friends with their head coach. I kind of was trying to slip him a couple 50s to tell me some insider trader secrets. He wouldn't give me too many, but he did say the things he did give me kind of on a general level. That they're going to be well coached. They'll be disciplined. He's a disciplinary. So we expect to kind of play against an athletic, well coached team, and kind of have a great first test so that we can kind of gauge where we're at, where we need to improve, and what we need to do as we move forward and get into PSAC West play.
Their starting quarterback returns in Darius Taylor. They also have the CIAA Defensive Player of the Year in Sterling Hammond. Have you been able to see them at all on film from last year?
They've had a couple highlight films up, so not a ton. You're not watching game films, so you can't have, as we like to say, the coach's edit version. But we've seen some highlight stuff that that was up on different websites, whether it's YouTube or Huddle, but those are kind of short clips of just the players throwing all their good plays. So when you're preparing for a team or preparing for a particular player, you like to see the good and the bad. But certainly both will not disappoint. In the highlight films that we were able to see, they definitely develop have some skill sets that were going to be a problem for us very early, and we're going to have to kind of make sure we get settled in and keep him contained because he can run, he can throw. He's a taller version, so very similar to Bowie State's quarterback a year ago. So I think for us, it's going to be a case where we got to make sure we get our feet underneath us. We're going to have to tackle well because we anticipate them being kind of a no-huddle, fast-paced, get the ball in space type of team.
Finally, Coach, still unsponsored, keys to victory. We'll have to get on Chris Smith for this. We've been looking for a car dealership for how long now? So your keys to victory today against Virginia Union.
I think, as we have shared with the team for probably the last 2 weeks, we kind of broke camp up into, really kind of a week and a half of, install, and then we started getting into kind of situational football. So we talked a lot about, in the opener, the teams that typically win are the ones that can minimize the mistakes. So not to give you coach speak, but it really is going to come down to, we have to stay on track on offense. We know that while we think we'll be improved defensively, we're going to have to kind of take care of the football and not give, Virginia Union anything easy. We're going to have to capitalize on any mistakes that they make. In the opener, we tell our players that, we're going to make mistakes, they're going to make mistakes. It's the team that can capitalize on them that's going to have the best chance to win. I think from an offensive standpoint, we got to be able to move the chains. We got to be able to pile up first downs. We got to be able to finish in the red zone, something that we were kind of peaks and valleys on over the course of the last couple of years, where we typically could do pretty well with explosive plays, and we got into the red zone. Sometimes we stalled a little bit. So I know Coach Eager spent a lot of time this off season in that area, and we spent a lot of time kind of practicing it, defensively. So, from our perspective, I think, the keys are going to come down to our ability to be able to, keep the sticks moving on offense, keep, their offense off the field, try to wear down their defense. It's going to be hot down there. And then I think defensively for us, we've talked a lot this off season about, with the nature of offenses today, you have to have the ability to create turnovers, something we did not do a very good job of a year ago, and that hurt us a lot in some games that scores got out of hand. So certainly we concentrated on. They've done a pretty good job during the course of training camp of turning the ball over. We had several practices where we got upwards of 3 to 4 turnovers from our offense, which we believe is a pretty good one. So I think if we can do that, it'll certainly put ourselves in a position to be successful. And then at the end of the day, we have to win situational football. We got to be able to maximize our efficiency and get it to a level down and distance-wise that's going to allow us to be very, very productive on both sides of the ball.
Coach, I know you can't wait to get going. We can't wait to for you guys to get going too and chat every week for the remainder of the season. We will be on video so people can see us. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but for week one, people can just listen to us, I guess. But as always, Coach, thanks for joining us, and I'm really looking forward to working with you again and having our weekly talks and talking Griffins football. Good luck against Virginia Union.
No, appreciate it, and we're excited about the season and also excited about the partnership with Westmoreland Sports and looking forward to the season as well.
Thanks, Coach. Good luck.
Thank you.
That is Coach Isaac Collins, ready to enter his 6th season as Seton Hill University football coach, as we talk with Coach Collins every week on our Griffins Game Day pregame shows that begin an hour prior to kickoff here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Coming up next, we'll continue on Griffins Game Day as we are getting close to kickoff. You are watching the Westmoreland Sports Network, your home for Griffins football.